In this module, we're going to cover the actual steps for creating the account, getting your ads on the site, initially getting approval, and being in good standing with Google Adsense. So this is the screen that you'll see. You need to go to google.com/AdSense/sign up, and you'll be able to find that link in a resource document that I upload to the course. And unfortunately, before we actually can cover this, we need to talk about the website that you're going to place your first AdSense ad on, because after you sign into Google, the very next thing it asks you for is the URL of your website. So one of the most important things is to have a website that is acceptable for Google AdSense ads to get your account approved at the beginning. Once you have an account approved, you can add other websites to it, and those additional websites are not manually approved and reviewed by Google. But the very first website that you enter when you create your AdSense account for the first time is actually reviewed by a real live human being at Google. So I'm just going to show you a website here that's an example of a website that would pretty easily pass the Google approval process. And it's not a very pretty website. As you can see, it's kind of got a very old user interface. But the reason that it would be perfectly acceptable to Google is that the articles are useful. What it costs for snow removal is a pretty tame topic. The articles are useful to users, and that's something Google cares very much about. And the article is lengthy. Google would not like a site that has articles that are just a few words long. Like if the article were simply this paragraph, and maybe even this paragraph, they would kind of frown on a site like that that had many articles perhaps, but that were very short. So the first thing you got to keep in mind is that when you apply to Google initially, you need to have lengthy articles. And what I mean by lengthy, I think that probably 500 words or more would be a good standard to get into Google the first time. And that doesn't mean that in the future that every article you write will need to be of that length. Like for example, I haven't counted these words, but this would be sort of on the edge, this area of the screen I'm highlighting. And if you had this much text, you'd probably be pretty safe. They want some substantial amount of text because AdSense, the algorithm, actually reads the text that you have to try to put the best ads it can alongside the text of your pages. So the first thing is that the text needs to be lengthy. So how many articles would you actually need of this length, 500 words or more? Well, nobody knows for sure. Google has never published its exact standards for which kinds of sites it accepts and which it rejects. But I would say that you would want to have like a minimum of a half dozen articles that are healthy, user-friendly articles. And then the second qualification, besides just being of a good length and at least having half a dozen or so. Of course, more is better always, and longer and more is always better when it comes to trying to make Google happy with content. The other thing is that your content needs to be original. So you don't want Google to look at it and run it against their algorithm and find that you've copied your text from other sites just so you can get something up and running. All the text needs to be unique. Of course, there will be phrases within your text that may not be wholly original because people tend to use the same phrases over and over in any given language. But that's kind of the qualifications that I would look for. Clearly, sites that have been around a little bit longer may have a better chance or may not. I don't really believe that that's a criteria. If you search Google for how to get an AdSense site approved, occasionally you'll find people that provide a lot of different advice and they'll throw out numbers, but rest assured those people don't necessarily know what they're talking about. Google has never made any formal announcement as to the criteria for those kinds of sites. So if you have a user-friendly site, the text is original, there are at least 6 to 10 articles and they're of good length, then you stand a very good chance of getting that site approved by Google. So once you think you're in good shape in terms of having a site that they would accept, that's got good content, it isn't primarily selling affiliate products. Affiliates products would be kind of a negative signal for Google. And even if it is, if you could take links to affiliate sites out of it and make sure that the text is unique, if you've got just a good informational site, then you're probably set for Google. And then the next step in that case is to actually go to this URL, google.com/AdSense/sign up. And the next qualification besides having a website that's prepared is to actually have a Google account. And what that means is typically you start with a Gmail account. So if you don't have a Gmail address, you can go to mail.google.com and sign up and get a mail address. And then when you have something at gmail.com address, like for example here I have this address called thewebsiteinvestor@gmail.com. That's me. And then you'll click sign in with your new account or create an account, and then click and then go back here and sign in, and I'll paste in the password and sign in. And then you're brought to the second screen in the process, which is your website. Now, we just looked at whatitcosts.com, which incidentally is not my website. And that site is in English. It's very important to pick the language of the website itself, not necessarily your website, not necessarily the language that you speak in, but the language of the text on the website, because Google tries to pair the right language ads with the text on the website. So in this case, that is English. And then we would select continue. Now, I'm not actually going to select continue here because one of the qualifications for a good Google AdSense account is that you don't already have one. And I do have one personally and also for my business. So Google takes those things very seriously. And if you're trying to create multiple accounts and you're logging in from the same IP address or using your same name or your same email addresses or your same physical address, they keep track of those things, and you don't want them to suspect you of violating their terms and conditions, even if you're doing that accidentally. So I'm not actually going to click continue, but when you do this, you need to make sure that the domain name is exactly correct that you entered in, and that the language is correct, and then you'll click continue. And in this third area here, your information, they will ask you the details of the account, and it's no different than many accounts that you might set up online. It'll be your name, your physical mailing address, which cannot be a fake address. You need to enter your real address because Google will mail a card to you in the physical mail with a PIN code that you'll need to enter into their system later on to validate that the address that you gave them is correct. They're interested in dealing with real people who are not anonymous, that have a real address. So you need to put a legitimate address that you have access to on that screen. So your name and your address. And then later on, you'll be asked to enter tax information so that earnings that you receive through Google can be reported to the IRS. And Google does every year send the IRS a statement of your earnings if you're in the United States. If you're not in the United States, they may ask for other kinds of tax-related information. So once you've set up an account, then I'm going to show you the actual AdSense dashboard that you'll see. Now, it's not going to look exactly like this one because it's going to be a brand new account and you're not going to have money that has been spent. But after you have been at it for a little while, like I have, then you'll have some money in your account and you'll see numbers like this. Instead, what you're going to see when you have a brand new account is a little message that says that you need to create ads and put those ads on your website. So the process is you enter your personal information to set up the account, then you create an AdSense ad and you put that ad on your website. So I'm going to talk about next how to create the ad. And the way you do that is you go to My Ads and you click on New Ad Unit. Now, in a future module, we'll talk about which kind of ad unit it's best to select and what the advantages and disadvantages of those ad unit sizes are and what they actually look like on your website and things like that. But for now, we're just going to, I'm going to show you how to create a test ad. It's not too important, the placement of it, the size of it, and those kinds of things when you're initially applying for approval. So what we're going to do to begin with is just enter a name. Now, typically, if on my normal websites, I will have about 3 ads. I'll have one towards the top of my pages, one in the middle and one towards the bottom. You may also have one in the sidebar. So when you give a name to the ad, it's a good idea, good practice to maybe put something that implies the name of the website first. So this website that we were experimenting was about costs, how much things cost. So we could just say cost, and then I'm going to say top ad, and sometimes indicate in the name if it's a leaderboard, I might put leaderboard, or I might put something like big box if it's a box shaped ad. And I give my ads names like that, just keeping in mind that you're going to have multiple ads and that you may also have multiple websites over time using the same account. So you just want to keep that in mind when you name the ad. And here there are recommended ad sizes, and then there are other ad sizes that are not recommended but are available in special situations. Again, we'll cover that a little bit later in the course. And you can select whether it's a text or a display ad. In this case, I'm not going to walk you through all of these options because we'll do that in a future module, but what I am going to do is select Save and Get Code. And so Adsense tells us that the unit was successfully created. That means from their perspective, this new ad unit exists. And here they give you some text. Now this is programming code. This is JavaScript, and you may not be able to read it. You may never in your lifetime be able to read or understand it, but it doesn't matter. You just select the box and it will highlight it for you, or you can select every character yourself. Either way, and then we just copy that. And in the next screen that I bring up, I'm going to show you an example of where you might put this, where you might paste this into your WordPress or other kind of website. Here we have kind of a random website. It's just one of the many websites that I own, and this is kind of a small one that I don't pay any attention to, but I'm going to use it as an example for you as to how you could paste your code into the website. And don't worry, later in the course we'll give you more details on the various ways that you can paste your code onto your website. So in this case, I actually have a plugin installed for use with Adsense, and that on this site, actually, there are several of these installed because certain pages worked better with certain plugins. But one of the plugins that I use most is called Ad Injection. And here is another plugin that I use in certain cases, Easy Plugin for Adsense. I usually only use Easy Plugin if Ad Injection isn't working for some reason or on all of the pages, which is rare. But we'll click on Settings under Ad Injection, and Ad Injection has just these big boxes for where to paste in your code. Now, as you can see from the video, I actually already had code in here, which is why I whited it out to protect the actual publication name of the code. But what I'm going to do is paste in the code from the ad that we just created. And you can see that the text that I pasted says cost top big box. So in other words, it was the website about cost, like how much does it cost? And then this ad is going in the top ad space right below the title and in the text of the article, and it's a big box. So that's simply just the name that we gave it in the panel when we set it up initially. And all I have to do in this ad injection plugin is to paste in the code and then click Save All Settings. And I'll go into detail about all of these other settings in the plugin, but in order to get initial Google approval, and that's all we're concerned with at this point on your brand new AdSense account, you just need to make sure that that ad is showing up on your website somewhere. Now, when you paste in the code and it's a brand new site, you are not going to see the ad immediately appear, because for brand new ads, it takes some time for Google to acknowledge the ad. So in the case of a brand new account, not only a brand new ad, but a brand new account, like you're creating right now, what you'll end up doing is pasting in the ad, but then when you go to the website itself and we open up an article on the website, if this were a brand new AdSense account, I selected to put my ad in this top area right here, you would not see it there. So the unfortunate thing is that when you very first set it up, it's a little bit disconcerting because you don't see anything. So instead of the text stopping here and there being an ad, the text would have just gone right across the screen and there would be a placeholder for the ad, but the ad actually wouldn't be there. And in some cases, depending on how your WordPress is set up, there might be a blank spot here, entirely blank, and no ad would appear. And what you can do though in that case is you can look at the source code of the page, and this is a technical step. You don't really have to do that. If you've done the step and placed your code properly and you've clicked save in the plugin or save in the theme, in some cases your theme will actually have a place to place ad code. If you've done that, you can actually be confident that the ad code is installed correctly on your site. But if you do want to take the extra step, what you can do is, this is Google Chrome I'm using. Some other browsers you have to look elsewhere to find it, but in most browsers there's a place where you can view the page source. And this is the gobbledygook, the HTML and other code that your browser translates into a pretty web page for you. But the way you can know definitively if your ad code is installed is to open up a view page source and then do a find and look for CA Pub. And here we see CA Pub occurring in a couple of different places on this website, because not only do we have one ad installed, we have multiple ads installed on this page. And if you see that CA Pub, then that means that you successfully installed your ad on your website. And what that means, more importantly, is that Google will be able to find the ad code. Because after you have set up your AdSense account, the very next thing is that Google asks you to create an ad, put the ad on your website, which we just did, and then the Google systems automatically detect that you've placed that ad on your website, because Google is always crawling through your web pages to update its index. And in this case, AdSense has its own crawlers, and it will crawl through your website and it'll detect that the ad has been added, and then Google will tell one of its agents to go approve your website. So what they'll do is they'll find that you added the ad correctly, and then they will go and open up your website and they'll check out the quality indicators of your website. Things like, is your text unique? Does it include content that is unacceptable to Google, like adult kinds of content or hate text or products that they deem objectionable? And as long as your content is long enough and it looks like a user-friendly site to Google and they don't find anything objectionable about it, then they will send you an email saying that your AdSense account is approved. And you can, of course, look at your AdSense account itself. You can log in for a few days and just check to see whether they've approved your account. Now, it's a little bit unclear how long it will take them to approve your account. Sometimes they do it in just a few days, and then sometimes it's much longer than that. But those are the basic steps on getting your AdSense account approved. And once it's approved, then we can add more ads and get a little bit more refined in the techniques that we use.